Okay, today is Tuesday. It is June 24th. It's 8:35 p.m. Uh Back in 2020, I was living in Orlando, Florida, and I was looking for a job. And so there was this company that looks at wafers and with the naked eye, not with a machine or software. And so they were trying to hire somebody who would use the microscope to look at the structures to see if there's any deformities or anything like that, as part of a service that they provide to other customers. And so two people showed up. One of them is the engineer. So there's three people. The owner is the lady is the owner, and then there's the engineer who oversees the setup there, and then there's another guy who has been hired as the lead, to represent the lead as the visual inspection of these wafers. And so I was being interviewed, and they showed me this area. So I looked through it. It was a clean room area, sort of, but essentially a it is essentially a small operation, not a major, like a major big operation. It's a small operation. So the third guy who's supposed to lead had these glasses that were like Coke bottles, and his eyes were like shifting and things like that. I'm thinking, okay, so you're telling me that if I work here, my eyes will look like that? So apparently, it is the job of the person there to use the eyes to recognize certain structures, defects, scratches, and things like that, right? And so I thought to myself, I don't want to lose my eyesight. I don't want to look like that. I don't want to walk around with like Coke bottles in my Coke bottles. I currently have uh, my eyesight has diminished such that it does look like Coke bottles, but not as bad as what that guy had, right? And so I decided to move back to Boise and to work as a dishwasher, right? That's far better than doing that. I mean, that would have been so then now I'm essentially doing the same thing, essentially recognizing patterns as a day trader. And so I thought to myself, now this is something that I have. It's amazing to me that I didn't recognize this. Okay, so the definition of a pattern recognition, I just pulled it up. The definition of a pattern recognition is the ability to identify recurring structures, sequences, or arrangements in data or information, right? That is pattern recognition. It is it is a pattern recognition. So let's say I have lunch with this Christian brother of mine for 10 times. It's been 10 times. And so he's a different denomination. I'm a Catholic, and he has this anger management problem, particularly for people who love Mary. Okay, and so every time I mention Mary, the guy gets upset and fumes, and the situation erupts into an emotional altercation, where I just sitting there enjoying lunch, and I go on my way, but the person is like sitting on a hot stove. Okay, so that happens the first time, the second time, third time, fourth time, and then on the 10th time, I finally made a connection. Hey, because I am Catholic and he's not, that is making him upset. That is a pattern recognition. Okay, that is pattern recognition. That is pattern recognition. And so I realized that, and then what trading is essentially is the same thing. It is a continuous cycle of understanding. That's why note taking is so important, because it is identifying the patterns that is in me to associate myself to proper trading of a proper pattern of behavior to in order for me to trade right. It is a pattern recognition. And jotting things down, taking notes is part of that solution. Okay? It's the part of the solution that allows me to recognize my behavior. So apparently, so when people who have experiences, okay, people who have experience, and then they bring them on to a prop firm, uh, when they bring this person into the prop firm, they have these uh, preformed patterns that they have in them that that makes them behave in a certain manner because it is a behavior that has been patterned into the person, and that person will use that pattern. Such as, okay, so in America, there's a lot of immigrants that come in legally or illegally, but there is a specific instances where somebody who just came off the boat has a behavior that is different than the Americans who are living here, who has watched TV for 40 years, okay, have seen the American TV and the way that they behave, okay? The way that they behave is quite different than somebody who just came off the boat, okay? So because they behave differently. So there is a pattern of behavior that is associated with a cultural thing that they used to live in, and when they come to America, then they still have that pattern of behavior until they finally recognize their behavior is different, and whether they choose to make changes to that or not is different. And so being an American, being a patriot, has a specific behavior. It all ties into prop firms where they have a specific way of doing certain things. But the person who has experience does the same thing, but in a different way, because the person has acquired the habit that makes them do the same thing, but in a different way. It's a habituated kind of thing. And so it is a recognition of a pattern to figure out what I need to do to match it up. Now, the central theme of day trading is pattern recognition. Pattern recognition is essentially is same thing as coming up with an idea of something that I saw on backtesting, and then I formulate it, and then I take appropriate action on it through backtesting, and then I get a certain statistical value, statistical data from what I backtested. And then what I'm looking for is that on an ongoing basis in the market with the price action, that I'm looking for a particular setup based on my preformed thinking of what the setup is, and then taking action on it. That is trading. That's what professional traders do. Now, when something is forming, it's not there yet, because that's the trick. Okay? So if I'm looking for something in the market to be exactly the same thing that I want, then the setup has already formed and has gone. The action has already been performed. And so what I need to do is take that price action that I have that defines a setup, and then when I look at it, then I need to say, okay, the pattern matches here, and so most likely it's gonna look like this. So what I'm looking for is a snippet of that particular pattern, and then take that and then overlay it onto what's happening here. And then when I see it, then I can take appropriate action. And then if somehow when I say that it is an A plus setup, then it is an A plus setup, and most likely then I can size up based on what the validity, what the efficacy of that particular setup is. That essentially is pattern recognition, and that's what professionals do. So they're just they have seen it before. They know what a partial pattern looks like, and so when they see a partial pattern, they know, because they've architected it. They know it happens. So a break and retest essentially just breaks out. Could it be a break and retest, or it could be a parabolic move. So when it moves back, touches on the support, then they get a little bit extra dose of reality. Maybe now it's like 67% accurate that whatever is going to form is there, but it hasn't fully formed. And so it forms, and then what I'm expecting is that after it does this, bounces off, and when I see a particular candle that matches up to edge it up to 80% or 90% of confirmation, and then when I enter, then it's gonna do its thing. But sometimes what it's gonna do is it may not do that, and so that's trading. So recognition is, I did not think about this. I really did not think about this until today, really. So when I'm looking at a setup, I'm looking at a setup that is fully formed, that gives me an idea of what the setup looks like. Then when I'm actually looking at it, I'm looking at the price action, and I'm looking at the price action to see a portion of that setup. And then I need to use that portion of the setup to overlay onto my thinking that I have about particular thing. Hey, does that match up? Is that what it is? Is that what it is? Is it forming out to be something that I'm thinking in my mind? Is that pattern matching up? Then when it matches up, then I can take that trade. But if it's not, if it deviates a little bit, it could be something else. Then I can say, okay, it looked like it was a break and retest, but now it's forming out to be something else, right? Maybe it's a double top. Maybe it's forming into a double top. It breaks, it goes up, and then it just reverses, and it just turns into totally some other different some other type of a setup. And so pattern recognition is essentially, I mean, it's everywhere. It's pattern recognition is everywhere. People do it. People engage in the recognition of pattern in order to define what their next step is going to be, right? So when they go to a pizza restaurant, they have this established, a pre-formatted structure in mind of what a pizza looks like and what it tastes like and what the experience is going to be. And then when they see it visually before they get there, sit down and start eating it, they have a pretty good idea of what an A+ setup of a pizza restaurant is. And then they go into it, and then they experience it, and then most likely in many cases it'll meet up to a certain point. Sometimes maybe the crust is a little bit thicker on that time, right? Or maybe the sauce is a little bit different. Maybe they didn't put enough cheese on it or something, right? And so there's some variability in the pattern. So a pizza is a pattern. It's a recognition. A hamburger is a hamburger because it has a specific characteristics of what a pattern is. Pattern of a hamburger. It's a hamburger. It's a hamburger because it's a hamburger. Because it looks like it. It forms it. It has a bun on the top. It's a bun on the bottom. Sometimes a hamburger is different. It's called I think it's called a vegan burger or something, or whatever it is. They essentially have a patty in between, like lettuce or something like that, right? And so so the whole world in life is about pattern recognition. It is a recognition of a pattern. What is a Catholic? There's a certain characteristics of a Catholic, right? So there's something called a Roman Catholic, which is essentially a predefined structure of what a Christian is, that specifically defines what a Catholic is. And so there's a pattern. It's a recognition of a pattern. So all of it, everything else in life it's like, what is an oven? Oven is an oven. Okay, what is an apple? Apple is an apple because it has certain characteristics. It has certain patterns, right? Sometimes because of genetic engineering, it can be labeled as such, and it now afterwards it sits somewhere else, so it could be defined as something else. So essentially, what a pattern. So trading essentially is supporting this central theme. The most important part is pattern recognition is the most important part of trading, and everything else is supporting it, because pattern recognition is saying, I'm going this way. Okay, I'm going this way, and everything else, like trading pattern, supports it. Whatever happens as I go into that direction is supporting it based on everything else. And so pattern recognition is the point of the arrowhead that is pointing in the direction that it's going. Okay? That is pattern recognition. I didn't know about it. For 5 years, I had no idea. What is a pattern? The most important part, it was like, I'm making money, I'm losing money, I'm making money, I'm losing money. It's been cycle all over and over, all over for 5 years. It could have gone for 10 more years. But the central theme of trading is, okay, so apparently the chief executive officer of a company steers the company in a particular direction. And so he is the person who is recognizing the pattern of what the business is, so that he can move in that direction, so that he can pattern his company based on what he sees in the future. That's what he does. A chief executive of the company is patterning his company in a way that it fits into the future, okay, of prosperity, most hopefully, right? That's what's happening. So pattern recognition is the most important part of trading, whether it's day trading, whether it's swing trading, whether it's intraday trading, whether it's investing, whatever it is a pattern recognition. It's like, okay, so when Warren Buffett looks at the financial statements of Coca-Cola, and he's looking at it, right? He's looking at the dividends, right? He's looking at the dividends, and he's looking at this scrumptious little dividend that he's getting every quarter, right, from this company, and then he weighs to see how much money he can park into that investment. And whatever the dividend that comes in, and the fluctuations into the price doesn't really matter, because what's happening is that the compensation that he's getting from the dividend is overwhelmingly enough to justify him parking some amount of money into that company, right? And so he sees this pattern. Okay, well, they paid dividend 10 years ago. They paid dividend like 20 years ago. They paid dividend last year, even though the economy wasn't so good, but they still paid dividends. So what does that tell you? So there is a specific continuing ongoing dividend that will come into fruition by taking a stake in this company. So he's looking at the pattern. That's pattern recognition. See, mired in gambling addiction, mired in emotion and all that, blinded me from seeing what the most important part of day trading is. It's pattern recognition. I didn't see that. I could not recognize it. So what I was doing is I was stoking my emotion, and I was stoking my addiction. I was addicted to the morphine drip that I was causing internally in my body, because I was addicted to adrenaline. I was addicted to trading, and I was like addicted to the emotion of it. I was addicted to the highs and lows. When I make a trade, my heart would raise, and I would be addicted to that. That is the addiction that I have, and all that addiction has preoccupied me for the past 5 years. From seeing what is the most important part of day trading is. It's pattern recognition. It's a pattern recognition. If I can recognize a pattern, I can size in whatever I want, and the end result will be positive. But if I were to size it right based on the statistical probability of that pattern, and the validity and how strong of a correlation I see, then the return will be far more significant if the setup turns out to be a high probability setup. And so I have been blinded by what I was supposed to be doing. I didn't know about it. I had no idea. I didn't know. Now I see the most important part of trading is pattern recognition. Pattern recognition is the ability to identify recurring structures, sequences, or arrangements in data or information. So let's say I get into a trade, and it drops below a support, and it just screams down. It doesn't stop. Okay, what is my thinking? What is that pattern telling me? It's going to go down further. It's going to take all my money if I don't get out of there. Okay, that is pattern recognition. Okay, everything in life is pattern recognition. Okay, if I go to a pizza buffet and I stuff myself, and then a day later I realize I've gained like 30 or 40 pounds, right? And then I make a mental note of it, and then I go there like a week later, and then I still gain a little more. And it turns out the cheese and all that stuff, cheese especially, and bread, causes a heavy dose of weight gain. Okay, that's what happened. It's a pattern recognition. Okay, pizza is delicious. It's great. I love it. It's like it's comfort food. Okay, I mean it's like, oh my God, I want to go there and eat as much as possible, right? But that's what it is. Life is about pattern recognition. Okay, and so let's say your wife gives you like 10 kids. Okay, she must love you. That's pattern recognition. She adores you. She adores the children that she's creating with you. Okay? If she loathes you, she dislikes you, she probably would not even have the first kid. But if she doesn't like you, she'll probably stop at the first after the first one. Okay? That's pattern recognition. That is pattern recognition. My God. The most important part about day trading is pattern recognition. If I have my pattern recognition correct, it'll compensate for stop losses because I'll always be right. Okay, that's how important pattern recognition is. Okay, so even if it's wrong, then I'll recognize what the pattern is and I'll exit. Okay, that's pattern recognition. I had no idea how important pattern recognition is. Pattern recognition is essentially defining what something is, right? It's a pattern recognition. So when somebody's like developing some new periodic chemicals, right? Like oxygen, it's like you can't see it. You can't see it. You can't visually see it, right? Oxygen, you can't visually see it unless you have some sort of special equipment that allows you to see it, right? Okay, how do you see it? How do you see oxygen, right? It's transparent. Okay, so people didn't have any clue of recognizing what an oxygen is. But I mean, how would you recognize an oxygen, right? What is the pattern and signature of oxygen, right? I don't know. How would you define it? Anyway, so that would be tough to. But if I have a pre-formatted uh, a pattern of something that tells me something is an oxygen, then I can take that information and then go to a certain location and say, oh yeah, there's a high probability that this is an oxygen because it's creating a specific characteristics of that pattern that tells me that it is matching up and it is A plus something like that, right? If I go to the moon, there's probably no oxygen because there's certain things that are not there. So the contrasting difference between them tells me that there's most likely there's there's no oxygen there, right? Exactly. So pattern recognition is so important. Is the ability to identify recurring structures, sequences, or arrangements in data or information. It's it's been 5 years and I didn't clearly define it. Okay, this should be the first thing that I should have. This should have been something that I should have defined, but because because I have been on this journey of discovering what trading is, something as trivial as this never entered into my mind. It never occurred to me how important something like this is in trading. But this is a fundamentally important thing. This is so blatantly obvious, and still I missed it because I had no idea. It's pattern recognition. It's very important. Yeah.